I'm Bobby Brennan, President of World Trade Center New Orleans, and I want to welcome you this morning. We're happy that you're here. We're happy about this program about doing business in Israel and concentrating in the energy section of trade, and we're really happy that you're here. We've got a good group this morning. It's a sunny day on the Mississippi River here, and so the rays are coming in, and that's a good thing. I'd like to first recognize our sponsors of this morning, and without them, we certainly would be less of a World Trade Center. They support us on many turns and have supported us in bringing to you this program this morning. And I'd like to recognize the Port of New Orleans, all right, Port of South Louisiana, Waldemar S. Nelson and Company, Inc., with Charles Nelson here with us this morning, and the New Orleans U.S. Export Assistance Center here in New Orleans, and I know we've got representatives here. Our special guest I'd like to recognize before we get to our speaking parts here this morning and the main messages this morning. We have Mr. David Gillers. David, a new dad, I believe, right? Just this past week. Congratulations. David is Counsel, Senate Small Business Committee. Mr. Jerry Stevenson, Jerry's Treasurer. He's Treasurer of Noble Energy, and as David will be speaking to us in a moment. And Mr. Jim Veal. Jim is Director, Trade and Investment Promotion, Israel Economic Mission. Also, I'm looking for Honorable Joel Chasson, and I don't see him. He hasn't arrived yet, I believe, but he's Executive Director, Port of South Louisiana, and I believe that he will be with us a little later. Ms. Peggy Grandpré, Deputy Director of Marketing, Port of New Orleans. Peggy, are you with us yet? All right, well, Peggy will probably be in just in a little bit. Charles Nelson. Charles, President and Chairman, Waldemar S. Nelson and Company, Inc., here in New Orleans. Dominic Knoll, CEO of the World Trade Center. Dominic, doing a great job with the World Trade Center, I'll tell you. He is the best networking executive I know. Don Vanderwerken, Don, right over here, Director, Department of Commerce, New Orleans Export Assistance Center, and has just opened a beautiful new area in the building that his, right, that he occupies. Great. Mr. Michael Wheel. Michael, Executive Director, the Jewish Federation of New Orleans. Welcome, Michael. We appreciate you being here. All right, and Mr. Michael Olivier. Michael, Director, Committee of 100, a major economic force in our region, and Michael does a great job with heading up that and giving it great leadership. Thanks for being here, Michael. Appreciate it. Our first speaker today is David Gillers, and as we mentioned a minute ago, Counsel, Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship in Senator Mary Landrieu's office. David is Counsel for Banking and Lending Matters on the Senate Committee on Small Business and Entrepreneurship in Senator Mary Landrieu's personal office. He was a member of the Small Business Jobs Act of 2010 and on that team, and helped negotiate the lending provisions. He has worked on the House Financial Services Domestic Monetary Policy Subcommittee, and David is a graduate of Columbia College and received his JD from Boston College Law School, where he was a Weinstein Scholar. David, welcome, and we look forward to your comments this morning.
Thank you very much. And often when I tell folks that I'm counsel for banking and lending matters, they say, well, then why in the world are you working on Israel stuff? I also, in addition to the kind of banking portfolio, I do international affairs work for the Senator's personal office as well, and also had previously worked in the House Foreign Affairs Committee. So trade missions such as this is really kind of a nice synthesis of things that I've worked on and the Senator has encouraged the office to go out and do. I'd like to start off by thanking all the folks in the room and the sponsors. I won't be able to thank everyone, but I would certainly like to thank Waldemar Nelson, the Port of New Orleans, Port of South Louisiana, the World Trade Center of New Orleans. I also feel like we should thank Richard Katz, who wears many hats, including the APAC's hat, so APAC's presence and support of this is much appreciated, and Michael Wiles, the Jewish Federation of New Orleans. So thank you guys for being here. It seems like there are a good number of folks here who have been to Israel and who have worked in Israel before, but for some folks, doing business in Israel for a Louisiana company may not make that much sense at first glance. And so what I'd like to do is explain how we got here and why the Senator has decided to sponsor and participate in this mission and why it's a real value for her. I'll let our good friends at the Israeli Consulate, Jim Veal, and our good friend at Noble Energy, Jerry Stevenson, I'll let them talk about the specifics. But I'll give you some general background. In late 2010, there was a massive discovery made off of the coast of Israel, the largest natural gas discovery in the world in a decade. And Noble has been working in Israel as the partner to the Israelis for about 10 years or so. But aside from Noble, Israel has no domestic production capacity. And that's why Noble's collaboration with him has been so crucial. When the Senator heard that there was this massive discovery, no domestic production capacity, and she also knows that in her own state, she has one of the most advanced, creative, enterprising oil and gas industry, who are not afraid to travel, who are not afraid to be aggressive, she thought this is just a perfect opportunity to promote some international collaboration. In addition to which, I don't have to tell you that the past several months, more than several months in Washington, have been very tense and very partisan. And when an opportunity like this comes along where the Senator is able to set aside real partisanship and ideology and focused on pure pragmatism, what is good for the state, what is good for job creation and job promotion, and would have positive consequences, let's say, for our relationship with Israel, then it's just a perfect opportunity that she wanted to jump on. We've communicated then with the Department of Commerce and the Southwest Alliance, Dave Connor, who's not here today, but they've been quarterbacking this whole thing. And immediately, Don Vanderwerken at Commerce and Dave understood this and have really run with it. There are very often many trade missions that go to Israel. So trade mission to Israel is not a new thing. In fact, just about a month and a half ago, the city of San Antonio led a very successful trade mission to Israel. Several months back, the state of Massachusetts led a trade mission to Israel with the governor and Bob Kraft, who's the owner of the New England Patriots. Also very successful. So this is not unique in that sense. What is unique, and what, in fact, this is the first time ever that a trade mission such as this is happening. It is the first time a U.S.-led trade mission is going to Israel focusing solely on the energy sector, solely on the oil and gas sector, and really it's the gas sector. I will just give two cents about doing business in Israel for folks who have not been over there. But again, I'll let Jim really speak to this. Folks also may have some conceptions of what Israel is. You read a lot of headlines in the newspapers. And I'd just like to convey two things about that. Israel has the highest number of NASDAQ-listed companies per capita in the world, which means, so yeah, actually even more than the US, more than European countries. Per capita, highest number of NASDAQ-listed companies in the world. Israel is an incredibly business-friendly country, and the regulatory structure, the general attitude of folks over there is very business-friendly. Everyone speaks English, and they're looking, really, for an opportunity to work with American companies. The second thing that is also crucial to understand, and that's why I think the match between Louisiana and Israel is so significant, it is a Middle Eastern country, which is to say relationships, personal relationships are really key. And in Louisiana as well, a lot of businesses operate on personal relationships where those are key. So I think culturally, there are a lot of similarities as well. With that, I don't want to take any more of your time. I'd like to let the professionals here talk about the real meat of the issue. After they chat, we can open it up for questions for everyone. But I'd like to thank everyone else for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Jim Veal, Director of Trade and Investment Promotion, Israel Economic Mission to the U.S. Southern Region. Jim assumed his duties in December of 2008 as Director of Trade and Investment and Promotion for the Economic Mission to the U.S. Southern Region, based in Houston, Texas. Prior to assuming this position, Jim was involved in the software industry, in the sales of complex technology solutions for over 30 years, working with such companies as ADP, PeopleSoft, Ariba, Siebel, and Oracle. Having won many awards and led many sales forces over the years, Jim most recently worked exclusively with Israeli technology firms for MarketTech Corporation, an Israeli-owned U.S. company, which serves as a marketing and sales arm for startup as well as emerging and established Israeli technology ventures. It is through this contact with the people and country of Israel that Jim was given the opportunity to work in his capacity as Director of Trade for the Southern Region. So let's welcome Jim as he gives his remarks.
Thank you. It's really an honor to be here. I love Louisiana. When he was talking about all those years in the software business, I've always made it a point to try to figure out a way to make Louisiana my territory. And I always tried to work it where on Friday I would have my last meeting somewhere in New Orleans and just stay here for the weekend. I am still a frequent guest list member at the Monteleone, but as a trader, I'm staying at the Omni to hear. But it's an honor to serve Israel. And, when people ask me, Jim, how did you really get into this? My friends asked me, I was talking to Mr. Katz, I'm not Jewish. I may be the only non-Jewish director of trade they have. Some rabbis maybe don't like me for that. But, I have this intense passion, and I hope that comes through for this country that started 63 years ago. It's a very small country with people, a lot of immigrants, very, very limited resources, and has done an amazing bunch of things that we all benefit from every day. Enormous advances in medical technology. You can't go into any medical center in the world and not have 50% of the machines in there with an Israeli thumbprint on them somewhere. My father-in-law recently took the pill cam. Who's heard of the pill cam? That you swallow this thing and it takes 13 hours of HD TV video of your whole insides and finds out what's wrong with you. Amazing technology, all that's come out of Israel. So what I want to do is give you just an overview, an impression of Israel in a way that, as David said, you've got people here that have been there and spent a lot of time there, and you all know. I spoke to the lady from the Times-Picayune who spent a year in Jerusalem, and we were talking about how when you put your foot down there the first time, it's a life-changing experience, and it certainly was that for me. So I want to give you an impression of what the country is like. You can see if you look at the bottom here, it's 290 miles long and 85 miles wide. This is a small place. When the mayor of San Antonio was over there a month ago, they took him up in a helicopter, and you can see both sides of it. So it's a small area. One of the coolest things about it, though, is a bunch of it's right along the Mediterranean here, and if you stay in Tel Aviv, it's a big, modern, fun city. You're right on the ocean. It's fabulous. It's beautiful. You can see some of the numbers here. It's a very stable economy. It's a very advanced economy. It's an export-led market economy because, you know, it's a small place, so there's not a big market there. They do a lot of stuff, and they export a lot of it. And what's it like in Israel? Well, if you've been there, you know, but if you haven't, you would probably be wondering, it's a Middle Eastern country, it's a long way from here, what's it like? Well, as David alluded to, everybody there speaks English. The business environment is very similar to the business environment here. The different protocols and things like that you would be familiar with are largely the same there. Also, as David mentioned, the long-term trade agreement with the U.S. It's not like a lot of the other countries in the area in that there's an extensive network of good roads and hotels and restaurants. And it's striking more in its similarity to America, particularly in a city like Tel Aviv, than the differences. I had to add food, incredible. Show of hands, who's been to Israel before? Am I right about the food? Is the food incredible? Yes. But Israel is known as a leader in business innovation. And I think a lot of the things that come from Israel are the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention. You know, there's not a lot of water there, so you wouldn't be too surprised to find a lot of water technologies. And Israel is probably in the world better at water reclamation than anybody else, in water conservation. One of the reasons San Antonio went there is because their major water source, the Edwards Aquifer, is drying up. And so you're going to see some mind share between the people in the water arena in San Antonio, where, by the way, they reclaim 60% of their water, which is one of the best in the country, but they needed to do a better job. So that was one of the things that drove the trade mission there. If you see, as David mentioned, there's 65 Israeli companies traded on the NASDAQ. Fairly interesting that that's more than all the other European countries combined, more than India, Japan, and Korea combined. The venture capital investment per capita there is 2.5 times more than the U.S. and 6 times more than the U.K., which is not a contest, but this is just to point out that there's a lot going on over in Israel in the business side of things. It's well known as a center for R&D. If you went to Haifa, and you've ever been to Silicon Valley in California, you would be surprised at how you would see a lot of the same signs on the buildings and a lot of big new buildings. Every major technology company in the world has a large R&D center in Israel. And it's ranked first for total expenditure on R&D, third on registered patents per capita, and third for the quality of scientific research organizations. And you can see the ranking there of the civilian R&D as a percentage of the GDP is very high. And it leads the world in Nobel laureates. And these aren't poets. These are physicists and scientists and technology awards. And I think they have 126 Nobel Prize winners in Israel, which is amazing in a country that's only existed for 63 years. A lot of the technology that's come out of Israel is due to a close relationship between the academic community and the business community. You have 12 tech transfer companies in the universities since '56, and most of that, however, is biomedical and life science, but they're responsible for more than $10 billion of licensing from the university system, and that's one of the highest in the world. This is, again, interesting and something that they'll talk about when we talk more about what Noble's doing. But this is the excitement of the synergy that already is beginning to exist with Louisiana and the expertise you have in the gas world that Israel doesn't have. You know, I'm talking about all the things we have, but the things that we don't have now that we need, you guys have. So there's an amazing opportunity for great synergy. You can see the openness of the economy, the percentage of the GDP that's imports and exports over the years, how that's evolved. And we're very proud to be a member of the OECD. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development only has 34 companies that have qualified for membership in that. And there are a lot of different metrics that are required of a country to be considered and to be accepted in this organization. And it really just puts, as I say there, a quality stamp on Israel's economy and business community, which is very important when you consider doing business with another country. You can see that exports as a percent of the GDP have grown significantly. And when you compare that to other countries, you see a tremendous rate of growth. And when you look at our trade partners, of course, Europe is closer, so it's going to be a little bit bigger. But you can see the imports and the exports, where everything goes. And all the countries that we have free trade agreements with are very important to the success of that. Now, this is kind of a fun slide. You see a lot of household names on the right-hand side. These are all companies that you would be familiar with that have a tremendous presence in Israel. For example, Intel, all the Intel chips in your computer are designed in Intel in Israel, where they have 9,000 employees in Israel. Microsoft, every operating system since Windows 95 was designed in total or part at Microsoft in Israel. Recently, Dell has put a center over there. These other companies, Motorola, have been there for years and years, Johnson & Johnson, HP, IBM, Siemens. One of the stronger R&D relationships Israel has is with large German companies, which just gives you an idea how business can change history. And then these are companies from Israel that have been very successful. Teva, which is the largest company in Israel. You may know of Teva as a generic pharmaceutical company. They also have branded drugs like Copaxone. If any one of you know anybody that's ever had MS, this is one of the most effective drugs ever devised for multiple sclerosis. Elbit, which has a large presence in the U.S., in Plano outside of Dallas. And then Given Imaging is the company that makes the pill cam that I mentioned earlier. Netafim is the company that has drip irrigation. That's really changed the landscape of the world. You know, you could remember back when we had Live Aid back in 1985, and Bob Geldof and all the musicians had this big concert, and they would show you these pictures of starving children sitting on dry, parched earth, cracked, parched earth. The place where they film those TV spots today is lush and green because of drip irrigation from Israel. This is a gift Israel's given to the whole world, by the way, to turn barren lands fertile. So if some of you people here are considering doing business in Israel and you're wondering, well, I don't know, Israel, it's great to see quotes like this from serious business people who have done business in Israel for years. The chief strategy officer from Motorola, or the president of Oracle, where I sold their software, people like Bill Gates. And I love Warren Buffett's comments because he kind of gets right to the point. But he said, we invested $4 billion in a company based there, and it's the only investment we've ever made outside the U.S. That's an extraordinary statement from somebody who has an enormous track record of success. The president and CEO of GE, Applied Materials. And these are things that if I was considering doing business in Israel, these would be companies that you would be interested to know that have been there for a lot of years. But I like what the head of Cisco says. There are projects for which it won't matter if tens of thousands of engineers work on it, or if a group of 100 engineers with a range of talents do all the work. Israel has such groups. The CEO of SAP, Siemens, IBM. Israel is the most exciting place I know. That's a pretty powerful statement. I like that. But when you look at the opportunities in Israel, and this is kind of a verbose looking slide here, but there are a lot of opportunities there. But we're here today to talk about primarily the oil and gas opportunity, and with the largest discovery of gas made in the last decade in the world, and probably more to come. For the people that are in the industries that you're in here, there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of opportunity. And, and not just directly in oil and gas, but indirectly with infrastructure projects and things like that that'll be needed to support the things that Noble's doing, the things that are happening over there. But Louisiana and Israel have always had, for a long time, a relationship. Now, I didn't know this till just recently, but in 2010, you had exports from Louisiana to Israel of $300 million. And that was a 57% increase over the prior year. You're the 17th largest trade partner with Israel, the state of Louisiana. And the total exports since '96, just under $4 billion. Back in 2004, the state of Louisiana became a bondholder with Israeli bonds. And you know, these are things I really wasn't as aware of as I should have been. But when I was preparing to come here, I wanted to know what's been going on with Louisiana. So you have a strong relationship with Israel already, and it's poised to get even stronger. Yesterday, the gentleman from Noble that was speaking in Lafayette mentioned that there's already 20 Louisiana companies that have been contracted to do parts of the work over there, and you've got 40 Louisiana companies that were outside of that are doing work in Israel today. So I won't belabor the point anymore because Noble's going to talk about it, but it's the largest discovery in the world. And then there's another potential thing over there, and I know everybody in this room knows about shale and how hard it is to get the oil out of the rock and the environmental concerns, and we have the same thing in Israel. But we're sitting on enough shale rock to produce 250 billion barrels, which is pretty significant, and that's another down-the-road opportunity that we have. And finally, my office, the economic mission in Houston, we work for you. We've got a staff of 5 people in Houston that are divided up among the various business sectors, and we're connected and plugged into the economy of Israel at the highest levels. We report to the Minister of Industry, Trade, and Labor, which is the highest government official dealing with business, and we work for you. My responsibility, as defined to me by that minister, was, Jim, you're going to do collaboration and cooperative opportunities, joint ventures, all sorts of business with U.S. companies. And your mission is to make every single one of those profitable for the U.S. company. That's the focus. Because we know if we do that, everything else will take care of itself. So we're here to support you, to give you the connections with the right people in the right way, cut through a lot of the red tape, make travel to Israel easier for you, arrange the meetings with the appropriate people when necessary on your behalf. So I literally work for you. Now, okay, this might look silly, and you recognize that as me here. So, but you know, I look at this picture and I think, this is Israel's first leap into becoming independent with energy. It's their first leap in the oil and gas business. This is the first leap. And you don't want to make that first jump alone. A real partnership. This is a real partnership. Now, when I made this jump, I've got an altimeter, and they told me ahead of time, now when we get to 6,000 feet, you pull the ripcord. I'm flying. I'm not even thinking about that. And all of a sudden, the chute goes up. And I go, whoa, I was supposed to be watching and pull that thing. But my partner pulled it because he had the expertise. He knew. I was busy flying. So I say, here's Louisiana, here's Israel. We need you to have our back. You have the expertise, you have the history. Nobody knows more about supporting deepwater drilling than the people in this great state. So I'm excited about the possibilities, and I really believe you can go farther faster if you work together. I'm here to work with you. I'm excited that this is happening. The world is changing. You're a part of it. Everyone in this room, you're a part of it. So thank you for letting me come talk to you. And I'm going to be here to answer questions later, but I appreciate the opportunity very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And what an eye-opener on the length and breadth of activity, economic activity in Israel. Impressive. Absolutely. Before we get to our next speaker, I want to recognize a couple of people that have joined us. Honorable Joel Chasson, right over here to my left. Judge Chasson is Executive Director, Port of New Orleans, Port of South Louisiana. And I can tell you that Judge Chasson has supported World Trade Center at every turn, and we can always depend on them to be active and interested in what's going on at World Trade Center, and we really appreciate it, Judge Chison, very, very much. The next person that's joined us is Arnie Philco, our councilman here in New Orleans. Arnie has been president of the council and councilman at large for some time, and has been just a great advocate of international trade in our whole region, certainly for the city and in our whole region. And is just a tremendous friend of the World Trade Center. And Arnie also, after Katrina, is credited with bringing the Saints back. He really, his love has also been sports. And he will be returning to the sports arena as the head of the Retired NBA Players Association, and which will require that he will not be in our city, I think, in the near future. And we just are going to be the lesser for it, Arnie, because you have been such a great asset to the World Trade Center and international trade and to this city, and a great leader in our midst. And we're going to miss you very much. Arnie Philco. Arnie, stand for us, please. Now, our next speaker is Mr. Jerry Stevenson, treasurer of Noble Energy. And Noble Energy has been operating in the Mediterranean Sea offshore Israel since 1998. Significant new exploration discoveries at Tamar A and Leviathan will help meet Israel's energy needs and drive new potential for natural gas in the future. Supported by 3D seismic acquisitions in 2009 and 2010, Noble Energy has identified a number of additional prospects and leads on their significant acreage position offshore Israel and Cyprus, with plans to drill 3 to 4 exploration and appraisal wells this year. Jerry Stevenson has served as Noble's treasurer since 2005 and brings over 25 years of experience in finance in the energy industry. And Jerry is based in Houston. Jerry, it's our pleasure to have you this morning. We look forward to your remarks.
Thank you, Bobby. It's good to be back at the Crescent City. I don't have to remind anybody here, it was 3 days and 6 years ago when this whole area was victimized by Hurricane Katrina. If you recall, that was a horrible time in the city's history, but you've recovered amazingly well. And I applaud everybody for the vitality and spirit that you've exhibited in terms of the rebound. It was a significant time in our life and in our household. My daughter was a student here at Tulane at the time, and so it was traumatic trying to encourage her to come back to mom and pop at a difficult time when a lot of folks here didn't take hurricanes too seriously. We've since learned a lot, haven't we? It was also an important day in my life because it's the first day on the job at Noble Energy. So we were victimized. We had some assets in the Maine Pass, so I spent a lot of time negotiating insurance claims thereafter. But we moved on from that point. I want to thank all the members of the World Trade Center and the other sponsors for inviting me this morning to visit with you and to share with you the Noble experience and why the success that we've generated is now going to be part of your success. And we applaud and encourage what you're trying to do here. In terms of job promotion and creation, it's a testament to the will and fortitude of American business to be able to take advantage of new opportunities wherever they may surface. So we want more of what you're doing. and we want to help as well. We'll talk about a little bit at the back end of this, where you're already engaged very strongly in helping us in the Mediterranean. We're a leading independent oil and gas energy company. We're headquartered in Houston. We're a member of the NYSE. We're a member of S&P 500. Our mantra is balance and diversity. And I'm showing that here not only in terms of our geographic exposure, North America versus international, but also in terms of our hydrocarbon production mix, liquids versus gas. You can see we're pretty well balanced. We like that theme. In terms of reserves, we're 55% domestic, 45% international. On the oil versus liquid side, 6% gas, 40% liquids, and we're becoming more liquid as we go. In terms of where we're focused, our key operating areas are in 4 regions: offshore Deepwater, Gulf of Mexico, onshore U.S., in the Mediterranean, Israel and Cyprus, and West Africa, Equatorial Guinea and Cameroon. We also have operations offshore China. We exited Ecuador. We have operations in the North Sea. We also have some new joint venture activity, potentially in areas of Nicaragua, offshore there, in an AGC, a joint development zone in Senegal and Guinea-Bissau, and offshore in France. So those are new potential activities for us in exploration going forward. We have 1,800 employees worldwide. We added 500 since 2006, so we're growing. We also retain in excess of 300 contractors to help us build out our major project portfolio. So this is a big growth spurt for us, led by what's going on over in the Eastern Med. In terms of size, market value, roughly about $14.5 billion. And depending on commodity prices, revenues in the annual range of $3+ billion. All right, Israel. Dave and Jim did a good job of underscoring what's going on there right now, so it's made my job easier. I don't necessarily have to sell Israel. I think that's already been done. We were there and discovered that early on as well. I'm going to talk about the early evolution of what Noble's presence has done, and then the transformation that we've been able to achieve in their whole energy space by virtue of the significant discoveries that we've found there. The transformation, and then how that's translated too in terms of the job creation that's coming back here in the States in terms of your contribution from Louisiana. I want to highlight Mary B. This was the first discovery in 2000. We actually had a smaller discovery called NOAA, and I'll talk about that briefly because NOAA is playing a key role right now in helping bridge some supplies until our Tamar development comes on stream. But Mary B was the first offshore discovery, gas discovery, about 15 miles offshore Ashdod. This is a 1 TCF discovery, and at that time this was a very interesting period for Israel because they truly wanted to diversify their energy sources. They were tied to a lot of high fuel imports. They wanted to control their own destiny in terms of energy self-sufficiency. And they also realized that natural gas was a friendly, environmentally clean fuel, and other fuels were leaving a heavy carbon footprint. This was an activity that became the Yam Tethys project. The Mary B field evolved into the Yam Tethys project with alongside our partners, Delek Energy. We developed this and had first production come on stream about February of 2004. And keep in mind, prior to this discovery, there was no indigenous production of hydrocarbons in the whole country. So everything was imported. So this was really the beginnings of an acid industry. And we got tremendous support from the government at that time in terms of legislation that developed a framework, a legal and regulatory framework for the natural gas industry, alongside a process to identify licensing and permitting, and then also legislation to develop a national transmission system because they truly didn't have any natural gas infrastructure. So all of that was around the Y2K period. And then from our major off-taker at the time was Israel-Leviathan Corporation. They're the state power producer. Again, their fuel was totally either coal-fired or diesel generated, right? So there was no gas in the concept at that time. So IEC was really the first lead offtake anchor tenant, if you will, for Mary B gas. We signed a long-term gas agreement for 10 years up to 635 BCF. And they continue to be the dominant off-taker for gas today. So what was happening, you can see on the right here, the industry started to take foot. And Israel started to build this infrastructure. The pipeline, the main trunk line pipeline here is delineated in red. You can see in yellow is where the expansion opportunities are. So there is continued gas development and growth in the industry. So incremental volumes as they come on stream will find a market not only within the power generation, but across industry as well, because what we've seen is independent power producers, refineries, chemical producers have all switched or have now dual capabilities. And so the industry is building steam, and it's right now a half a BCF a day of market. Our discoveries. In terms of the significant discoveries, there are really 3 of them, and they've come sequentially in terms of Tamar, Delete, and Leviathan. Tamar was a discovery in January of 2009, 8.4 TCF. At that time, it was the largest discovery in the company's history. Followed by Delete, which was another half a TCF, and Leviathan, which was discovered in December of 2010, was the largest discovery in the company's history, 16 TCS. In total, 25 trillion cubic feet of gas resource, enough to satisfy indigenous requirements for decades and then create a potential for export opportunities. So that's something that we, along with our partners right now, are studying in terms of what's the best solution to monetize this gas, whether it's pipelining into Europe or other areas, or potentially an LNG opportunity. This is our onshore receiving terminal at Ashdod. Currently, right now, we're producing out of the Mary B field, and it's exported via a 30-inch line. It comes onshore at the port of Ashdod, which is south of Tel Aviv. We developed the Ashdod terminal, came on stream in August 2008. Right now, we're undergoing a huge expansion opportunity, up to a BCF a day of processing capacity. So what the gas comes on stream is processed here and then is put into the transmission system across the country of Israel. The Tamar discovery, again, a huge resource. This basically gave the state of Israel self-sufficiency for decades to come in terms of their natural gas supplies. Leviathan was a huge game changer. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We're in the process of completing and developing Tamar. It's scheduled to come on stream in early 2013. This is important right now because Mary B is really getting to the point of being fully exhausted. It's expected to deplete by 2013. So right now it's creating a little dilemma for the industry. For Israel, we need to assure them that we have deliverability of gas, right? So we're developing this project. We discovered it in 1999. It's a small field, NOAA, just west of the Mary B platform. We're going to tie that back to Mary B, come through the same infrastructure, and that'll help provide additional deliverability for the state of Israel until Tamar. Yes, John?
What depth are you drilling at?
This is about 5,500 feet of water in excess of 16,000 feet. Yeah, so this is Deepwater. We're going to do this via 5 subsea completions. Again, we're going to construct a newly fabricated platform. It'll be adjacent to the existing infrastructure. in Mary B. It'll be tied into Mary B, and it'll flow through the same 30-inch export lines coming into shore at Ashdod. Originally, we had scoped out some concept that was going to be made landfall north up in the Haifa area. We went to a different configuration, and we're using the existing infrastructure. And that's helped accelerate first production for Tamar. To give you a sense for the size of the Tamar field, we've superimposed the field over the city of Tel Aviv. You can see its breadth right now. If you've been in the city of Houston, think about it going from one end of 610 loop to the other end, all right? And on top of that, it's a very prolific reservoir structure. You can see on the right, it's about 260 meters, just about the same height as the Moshe Tower in Tel Aviv. So you can see the depth of the reservoirs here in terms of, that's depicted in gray, very deep. In contrast to Leviathan, this is a deeper structure, but not as wide in terms of acreage. Leviathan is a little more shallower, but very expansive. So here we're superimposing Leviathan over the city of Houston, and it goes from one end of the Beltway 8 to the other end. Beltway 8 encircles, it's the largest loop encircling the city, and it's outside 610. So this is a huge find for us in the country, and it's going to satisfy demand from years to come, and it's now creating a huge export opportunity for the country.
This is also Deepwater?
This is also Deepwater. We're right now doing a lot of appraisal work. We're also envisioning going deeper into the first drill. There's a potential in a deeper zone for some liquids. We think that's a low probability, but it's a risk we're taking, and we're going to pursue that. And then again, with our partners, we're evaluating different export opportunities. So we have people engaged in this process, spending a lot of time and effort to understand the dynamics in the LNG marketplace, because that could be a potential for us. Again, you've heard that these were the two largest gas discoveries in deep water in the last decade. That's pretty significant. Leviathan being twice as big as Tamar, and Tamar in itself being the second largest in the decade. So world-class discoveries. So what have we done? We've basically been at the forefront of a new industry in Israel in terms of developing the natural gas sector. It's given them energy security and the confidence to really do different things. And from a global perspective, it may open opportunities for Israel and others in the space to really leverage their image on a global basis. Again, we have some export potential here, and keep in mind that when we talk about the Eastern Med, we also have Block 12 in Cyprus, which is adjacent acreage to the left of Leviathan on the other side of the international border. And we're going to be spudding a well later there in October, and to the extent we discover something there, that it just adds to the equation of how we want to monetize this gas and what's the right solution. Again, Cyprus is in EU, so that opens up a whole new area for us as well. Obviously, it's created a lot of financial benefits for the country. We've helped them save on excessive fuel costs and provided a more friendly environmental footprint. Now, this is one area that you have a lot of interest and focus on in contracting and procurement. When we talk about developing these projects, these are very long lead time, long cycle time projects. And once you make a commitment to financial investment on this, there's really no turning back. So from our perspective, it's really important that we focus on our ability to execute and provide financial flexibility so we can deliver on this. And that's something that I think goes without saying for this audience. You're all familiar with long lead time projects. We also have activity here, the added complexity of the geopolitical nature of where we are. There's a lot of intergovernmental contact and relationships that need to be focused on. It's just a lot of these countries are not very hospitable to one another. So that's something that we're working with. It would be great if we can add to the world peace equation. In terms of what your role is, I can say, you heard this yesterday from Stephen Flaherty, there's at least 18 to 20 Louisiana firms currently engaged on our project in Tamar alone. We also have added 2 more on NOAA. And just think of the possibilities for Leviathan. Because what we're talking about there is a huge capital commitment, somewhere ranging from $10 to $15 billion, depending on how this is going to be executed, whether it's pipeline or LNG. We're talking about huge capital commitments. Again, long lead time, long cycle time projects. So there's a lot of forward planning that goes involved in this, complexity issues, government-to-government discussions that need to be conducted to help pave the way for a win-win solution in the Med. But you're already playing a very active role. And on Tamar alone, for the topside project, there's $56 million of value that you folks are creating for us. And in terms of contract services, it range from anything from design and engineering work, construction fabrication, telecommunications, transportation, logistics, subsea work, whether it's completions, diving, pipelining, security. So there's an opportunity across a number of different spectrums to help us engage and deliver affordable and reliable energy supply for the state of Israel. And with that, I'd open it up to any questions.
Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation, but the one question I had is you mentioned that the regulatory and legal landscape essentially had to be created to deal with this sector. And I'm just curious if it has matured to the extent that it's now fairly reliable, or is it still in the process of maturing?
Well, the infrastructure is constantly changing, right? So the base transmission system, for instance, was put in the early 2000 timeframe, and it's continually be added as we go. So as new supplies, now that's really a foregone conclusion. They can build out their transmission system. Processing capabilities, obviously there's only one receiving terminal, which is at Ashdod right now. It remains to be seen whether new facilities would be installed for domestic use going forward.
If I could just add to that, we've chatted a little bit about this with folks in Israel. It's still developing, so the regulatory and legislative structure are still developing, and we also see this as one potential area of collaboration between Louisiana and the state of Israel. So Louisiana has, of course, one of the most advanced, effective, efficient regulatory and legislative structures for the industry. Israel is very new to it, and it's been around for a decade, but Steve mentioned the infrastructure is changing and developing, and as a result, the regulatory and legislative would also have to. And so this is specifically an area that we think that Senator Landrieu can convey to the Israeli government. We have an effective system that works here that's business friendly. Let's see if you can use some of the guidance that was developed.
That's great, yeah, man. Thanks.
Yes.
Yes, I have 2 questions. Is your presentation available on the website?
Well, we typically, in terms of our engagement with the investment community, we post our presentation material. So a lot of what I've been talking about is available on the website.
And I assume there's information how we get connected with your contracting and procurement group for work in Israel.
Oh, I can take your card and certainly make those introductions. Sure.
Also, if I want to add, we will make it available on the World Trade Center website as well as them. If you can call us, we will be happy to facilitate.
Ask me that question right here.
I'm sure I've made some forward-looking statements too, by the way. So yes.
For those of us who have worked for some time in the Arab Middle East or in West Africa, Muslim countries, Can you share with us any of the experience of the 25 companies who are working with you now, who probably also have that type of prior experience? Can you share with us if there have been any complications due to the geopolitical climate that you mentioned?
Honestly, I can't even address that because I'm so far removed from that, working in the finance and treasury function. We typically support the business in terms of the financing element, that aspect of the support, so I'm not that close to it, to be honest with you. Yes?
Can you elaborate, you had a statement of negotiating with multiple jurisdictions, or political jurisdictions,
well, that's typically at state-to-state levels, so we try to engage at our partner level and on our private contracts. Obviously, it involves a lot of engagement at the governmental level, but clearly we're in an area of the world with a lot of shared water space in region, you know, whether it's Lebanon, Cyprus, Israel, Egypt. I mean, the whole area, right, needs a lot of negotiation work. Yes?
Stephen Champagne from Premier Industries. The question I have is more on a specific nature as to where you are in the development. And so it's about both projects. The Tamar project, is it a TLP type structure that they're putting out there? Is it already contracted out along with the topsides facilities? And the reason I ask that is that the topsides, the components that we would manufacture here. And then what do you expect is your time frame of when the Leviathan facility is going to be in a similar condition where those components will be bid out and we can expect to possibly see some opportunities to actually price projects?
Well, we're well down the path on Tamar right now, so the decking is being constructed currently along with the top sides, so that work is being done as we speak. In terms of Leviathan, again, this is going to be a long lead time project, and we're just now understanding and getting appreciation for excuse me, the complexity involved. So this is going to be something where going into next year we want to have a foundation to help us establish the direction we take, whether it's a pipeline development or an LNG. And that's going to take several years before it actually reaches a financial investment decision. So again, we're not looking for Leviathan volumes to come on stream until late in this decade, along the time frame of 2017 to 2019. All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm not in the oil and gas business. I'm in the car business. I have a dealership here in the
Well, Delek Energy is one of the largest importers, and I think
my question is, I've been a real proponent and very passionate about natural gas in the transportation sector, natural gas conversion. I know we've talked about this as a nation to lessen our dependency on foreign oil, but it's I'm curious, the Israelis are probably going to embrace it through all the sectors of their society. I would think that they're probably going to do a lot of natural gas.
Well, actually, picking up on that point, you heard that the country is a hotbed of technological innovation, and this is one area potentially you could see another huge technological shift in the employment of compressed natural gas in country, because there's been a lot of discussion around that. It's a smaller country, again, because where they are, there's not a lot of legacy assets in terms of the typical petroleum distribution network, so they can construct the natural gas compression system probably more efficiently now. So that's an opportunity for them.
And if I could just add another point to that. But I'd like to offer an example of why I think that there's great potential for that. So there's an auto company called A Better Place, and they have a partnership with a Renault auto manufacturer for an electric car. And they're actually using Israel as a test bed for a purely electric car because it's a perfect size, it's a very small country, very small population as well, and everyone is very kind of technologically savvy.
They have the grid to support electric technology. They have the grid to support that.
I understand that there are gas stations with electric plugs for this test car that's already in place. And so my thought is if they can do that and if that is already online, then it's also the perfect country for some type of natural gas technology to develop as well.
Environmentally, what do you do with all these batteries? That's a farce as far as I'm concerned. Natural gas is really the way to go.
I offer that not as an alternative, but as an example of how quick they are to effectively get things to market.
Well, the other thing too is the potential for gas to liquids technology too. I mean, that's been technology that I think Shell's engaged in, and so that would also supplant, if that's developed, or would supplant the need for imported fuels. So gas has a huge opportunity in that country, not just in terms of building the infrastructure to move gas, but to reinvent the molecules to do something in other more productive areas. So
the Israelis obviously are very capable and technologically advanced people. My question is, how much is the Israeli government insisting that you use indigenous production in the support of your activities there? Do we need to be making associations with local people and work jointly with them, or are you importing most of your stuff?
Or they don't do any they don't do any importation right now. They had an import arrangement with Egypt in terms of gas coming from.
I'm sorry, not the product, the development of the field itself, the fabrication, the pipeline, all the elements that go into it.
I'm not sure I follow the question.
I think I might be able to. He's asking whether or not service providers that intend to go into Israel, if they have to form a joint venture with local businesses in order to bid on the projects. My understanding is that Israel, as a member and as a signatory of the WTO government procurement contract, and so you're allowed to bid on their projects on a non-discriminatory basis. And domestically, I don't think they require you to have a domestic partner in order to bid.
Well, I think my question is, are they allowing you to import everything without a problem, or do they insist that you try to develop the local industry?
Well, right now, we're getting total cooperation on that front. I mean, this is in the strategic national interests of the country. I mean, this was, that was really at the incipient stages. This became critical to their energy security. And at the time, many national leading figures in the country designated the Tethys project as strategic to their national interests. And that's a well-protected asset, I can say.
They do whatever it takes to make it happen.
And it's our understanding that that is the structure at this point. However, we think that it would be important in this trade mission to provide an opportunity for the Louisiana companies not only to meet with Noble, which we are, but also to meet with the Minister of Infrastructure, a guy named Uzi Landau. And that is the ministry, and is the government ministry that has jurisdiction over all natural resources. And so we'd be meeting with him and his staff, and meeting with any other kind of crucial government official, with the senator and the Israeli companies as well. So I think that that's an area that, from a trade mission perspective, we're sensitive to, and we'd like to provide all opportunities for the companies. But at this point, structurally, it's not a necessity.
Yes.
One more question. Is Noble involved with the shale development in Israel?
No, not currently, but I'm sure we're looking at it. I mean, obviously, we've just announced a joint venture in the Appalachia region with Consol, the coal producer, for their acreage there. So there's a lot of shale potential that we're developing in the Northeast that over the next decade will give us a new core area in the U.S. So that's obviously going to be something that we'll have an interest and focus on. Yes, sir.
My name is Richard Sieg. I work for Intermarine. We're a shipping company and have some U.S. flag vessels as well. In the current economic environment in the world, financing and project financing has been a little bit difficult in cases. Have you used EXIM financing or U.S. government financing as you move forward with your current or your future projects?
To this date, we haven't done any project financing, but we clearly see that happening with, in the context of Leviathan. Everything we've done heretofore has been on balance sheet in terms of public financing activity. But this is going to be a game changer in terms of our financing profile, clearly. Yes, sir.
Has Israel-Leviathan started converting their power generation to gas? Because now they're all liquid.
Well, IEC had started out that process in the early part of the decade. Many of the plants, Ashdod, Ashkelon, Hagit, Gezer, Redding, they were all changed over. That was about 3 gigawatts of installed capacity. That process continues as they build out the trunk line transmission system. Those power plants eventually will be converted or have that dual capability. And that also will bring on the rest of the industry that I mentioned earlier, because they too will now have an opportunity to use clean burning natural gas to drive their productions.
All right, well,
thank you.
Thank you. Jerry, certainly that was a very close-up view of Noble's work in the, with Israel and in the region, and we really appreciate that. And certainly from all the questions that we've had from our audience, there's high interest in that work and in the relationship there. Time is running a little short, but if there are any other questions of any of our guest speakers, we'll entertain one or two more questions.
And can I just make
Sure.
Kind of a final announcement while you're thinking about your final one or two questions. The trade mission itself is filling up. We already have firm commitments for about half the companies that we need, but there are still some more slots available. And we are trying to reverse government efficiency, which is to say, the deadline for application is actually tomorrow.
Right. I saw that.
So it's a very short window, but we would encourage anyone here who's interested to speak to Bree Knox over here. If you could just stand up, and Bree has applications, and Don Vanderwerken as well, and we will make it happen. So thank you very much.
Right. Well, before we go, I want to thank our speakers who just did a wonderful job of getting the message across and very effective. And David, if you would come forward, I have a memento of our appreciation and to remember us. It is a Plimsoll tie, actually, and you will remember the World Trade Center and today when you wear it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Jim, we thank you for being here and such a wonderful presentation on the length and breadth of the whole picture there, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. And Jerry, thanks so much for being here, and let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Bob.
Right. And thank all of you for being here. You've certainly shown your interest in the subject matter here with Israel and the work that our partnering there, and we really appreciate your attendance. These programs are designed to bring real business relationships to the fore, and for that opportunity. And we thank you for being here, and have a good day. We're adjourned, and thank you so much.